right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wine Access Unfiltered podcast. I am your host, Amanda McCrossin, here with my favorite co-host, Vanessa Conlon.
Hey, Amanda.
How you doing?
I'm great. I'm really excited about our guest today.
Me too. And speaking of our guest, I've had a really big week this week because...
Oh, do tell.
Oh, yeah. This is exciting. Are you a Sex and the City fan?
Of course. Is anyone not a Sex and the City fan?
You can chime in. Okay, so two exciting things happened on the Sex and the City front. Number one, Mr. Trey McDougal, Kyle MacLachlan, followed me on TikTok. I'm
Stop
dead.
it.
Dead. Screenshot, send it to everyone I know. Number two, one of my other favorite love interests on Sex and the City, a short-lived love interest on Sex and the City, Bryan Callen, a.k.a. Howie Halberstein. He's also with us today to drink some wine. What's up, Brian?
Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah, the guy who gave Carrie a sex sprain because I'm a...
The Jackrabbit. Yeah. I mean, did you think you were going to come on a show with two girls drinking wine and not talk about Sex and the City for a hot second?
The sobering reality when you're an actor is you realize you're just not a leading man. You're basically a character guy. It's like you're just not quite symmetrical enough. You just don't have all the goods to be a leading man. You're just that quirky guy.
Yes.
that she dates once. So it's fine. I had an agent one time who called me and said, they're looking for a coward and an alcoholic for this role. And I got it.
Wait, was it one character who was a coward and an alcoholic, or two separate
Both.
characters?
Yeah, both. It was
Okay.
It was on 7 Heaven, and I played this sort of like dad who had been an alcoholic, was trying to reconnect with his son, but he was a criminal, and it was, listen, this is my life.
This is your life. You've had a pretty good life, though. And for those who don't know Brian, you're a stand-up comedian, you're an actor, writer, podcaster, also a wine lover, as I learned from listening to many of your podcasts and you being guests on other podcasts. But some of you may remember him, obviously, from Sex and the City, from that, like I said, short-lived episode. You were also on MADtv, one of my favorite shows, sketch comedy shows growing up. Frasier, the Goldbergs, the Hangover Series. I mean, you've got a ton of stuff going on. And the reason that we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects today, which is wine and food pairing, and specifically steak and wine, is because I saw an episode of a new YouTube series that you just put out called Best Of, where you went to, in one episode, you went to a steakhouse in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's great. Where they basically fry fry all their, or cook all their steak over an open flame, which had to be grandfathered in and stuff. So it's pretty cool. And there's nothing like great wine with a really good piece of meat or cheese. I can sit in a wine shop all day and talk to them about the different wines. And I think there's nothing I'd like more than just to live in Bordeaux and just be mildly drunk all the time because I have to taste all the wine. That's just nothing like.
So here's the solution, Brian, because this is literally what Vanessa and I do for a living. Yeah. We host a podcast about wine. We talk about wine. We drink wine, and we travel to all these great regions, like pretty much on the regular. So I don't know, maybe a new podcast in your future.
I'm down, man. I'm down. I'll be the travel. I'll be your like traveling vassal, your valet, and I'll carry your bags, whatever I got to do.
We've been like fake pitching, but also kind of real pitching this. We've had a few other comedians on the podcast, and we're like, what if we just did a whole series of like taking comedians on the road with us? We go to wine regions, we get to like geek out on cool places and cool wines, and then they add the comedy element to it. I feel like this is the thing. Like, make this happen.
I love that idea. Getting paid to drink wine and travel. The other thing you can do is, if you're me, you just have very wealthy friends. And then they spend a fortune in Bordeaux. And then when you go to Bordeaux with them, what happens is you get a private tour of like Chateau Gros-le-Rose, where you basically get into the cellar and I drink a wine from 1956 and 1985 and 1999. And then, I don't know, whatever it is that we want. And then the guy made us lobster. He cooked us lobster over Cabernet vines in the chateau stove, the open wood burning stove. That's 300 years old.
Yeah.
And those are the moments where you're drinking wine, you're like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. Nowhere else.
Yeah. So. This is the beauty of wine. And as you alluded to, some of these experiences that you can have when like you know someone or you're traveling with someone that like knows someone, these experiences behind the privately marked doors are just unlike anything else. So
Yeah.
I don't know. You know a lot of people in the entertainment world. Let's pitch this show. Let's get it happening. We know all the people on that side. You know all the people on the other side. I feel like we just need.
Yeah, you bring the money, we'll bring the wine.
I think I could do that. I actually have some ideas for that. I think it could be really cool.
I'm gonna move us on to our favorite part of the episode, which is not actually our favorite part, but we just really enjoy doing it, which is we talk about articles and cultural events that are happening in the wine world. A really interesting one, especially for you, Bryan, because I know you're very into the health game. A new study came out of Osaka, Japan, talking about the life expectancies, or I'm sorry, the cognitive function of older people who drink wine on a regular basis. And I know we've had like other studies about this come out, like wine is better for your health, and then it's sort of conflicting. But essentially what they're saying is that there is a direct correlation between the amount of alcohol you drink and your higher cognitive function above the age of about 75, and a further correlation between it actually being red wine, not just like any alcohol. So it increased their cognitive functions quite a bit. So I think on the spectrum, it was between like 0 and 30, and they were showing an average score of 26. I will caveat by saying that this particular study only went for about a year. So, and it was like 1,200 people.
Also, these studies are ridiculous. These studies are irrelevant and ridiculous. I don't care if wine takes 5 years or 10 years off my life. I'm drinking red wine, okay? Because life is better with red wine. Let me tell you why your cognitive function gets better and why you live longer. It's because you share red wine. It's because when you drink red wine, you're with people you love. And part of life, and maybe all of life, is being able to share a great meal over great wine. That's called intimacy. Red wine is a lubricant for intimacy. It is a seduction, and it could be a sexual seduction, but more importantly, it's probably a friendship. It's a connection. There's something about red wine that kind of relaxes you and opens you up to all the possibilities at the table. And so, in my opinion, we live in this world where, you've got to be paleo or carnivore and you got to count your macros. You can kiss my ass with all that bullshit. All right. Guess what? Nobody gets out of this fucking thing alive, everybody. Sorry to tell you, nobody. You could do all the right things, man. You can take your vitamins and wear your seatbelt and exercise every day, and something comes out of nowhere and takes you out. It's gonna happen. Most of us hope we die in our sleep. But when that Grim Reaper comes, sorry, bro, time to leave. So in the meantime, get your kicks. And one of the ways to do that is by drinking red wine. I can't stand all this longevity bullshit. I hope wine kills me. You know what? I just woke up.
Death by wine.
Yeah, death by wine. Bring it. Bring it. I'm not going to be on my deathbed like, I lived a couple more years and I didn't drink any red wine. Shut up. I want the hangover.
One, can we just end the podcast right there? Because I feel like there's like, that's it.
I know.
That's the whole season 2.
You got me riled up.
That was Chappie's fault. He's our producer, and he specifically threw that article in there because he was like, Bryan's into health. I feel like I'll have something to say about it. And man, did you deliver.
I'm getting old, man. I'm getting old. It's very humbling, but it's all good. I rage against the night. I'm never going to stop working out and doing all the crazy things I do, but I'm also going to take my time. And part of that is just drinking great wine. Well, wine is a living food. It's an experience.
Yeah.
And what you're drinking, if it's a good wine, is the amount of care and time it took. When you go to places like Napa, my favorite place in the world, or the Bonn region, or wherever it is, man, you see, first of all, that there's no other way to make wine. Yes, it's automated. Yeah, they have all the machines. But at the end of the day, it's a manual process. And what I mean by that is you got to still pick those grapes, and the right grapes at the right time, and hope you're picking them at exactly the right time, and hope that the weather, that the sun is hitting that parched land the exact way it should, and that the sun was just so, and that there was enough precipitation, etc., etc. And then you put it in this vat, and then you got to taste it and keep tasting it. And it's all timing, and it's all kind of like up to the gods, man. And when
it's so much magic.
Yes, it's so much magic. Yes. And so you may have you get these people who can make wine, but it's like, there's a touch, there's a feel, there's the intelligence of the human mouth. that you cannot replace with a machine. And that to me is something I hope we never lose. In an age where none of us really know where we're going to fit in our future, think about it. Think about the blockchain and think about AI and think about gene editing. Do you see your biology fitting into that weird, crazy, futuristic world? No. But
Good
wine
luck.
keeps me grounded, man. There's something old fashioned about wine. I don't want your technology. Keep it over there, man. I just want my wine, and I want it picked by farmers with dirty, thick hands.
Bryan, why do you not have your own wine podcast? You're so passionate about this.
I know. I didn't realize I was until we started talking about it.
New discovery here.
New discovery. All right. Well, 100% agreed on all of those things. Vanessa, anything you want to add on the red wine front?
I just think I like
Bryan said
Bryan's
it all.
study a lot more than any other
Yes.
study that I've read about. So I'm going to
Yes.
go with that as truth because
Yes,
mostly it
okay.
aligns with what I'm already doing.
It's called confirmation bias.
Yeah, because it's something you can't. You're not supposed to be able to put it into words. You're not putting it into words is not the answer, right? It's experiential. It's probably the difference between a mystic who kind of like, it's like who is that great mystic who said, "I've never spoken to God, but I've heard him clearing his throat in the other room." And there's something about great wine, when you're drinking it and you get that rush with your friends and people that you love. And that's a rare thing, man. So it's something I can't describe. It's like my friend opened this chateau, this Rothschild, right?
Mouton?
Mouton or Lafite?
Give me the Mouton. The Mouton
Oh
from
shit,
1982.
that's the
Robert
big
That's
Parker.
the
boy.
vintage. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Robert Parker gave it a
Yeah.
100. Okay. And I drank it, and the reason it's so special is that when you smell it, you don't go like this. You don't go, "Oh yeah, that smells just like." No. It's got its own unique, crazy, godlike profile where you're like, you can't even drink it. You're like, I gotta keep smelling it. So that's what it is. Sorry, it is.
Don't be sorry.
Call me. Somebody call
we
me
all
down.
feel this way. It's I think you're articulating what a lot of us can't, which is this magic around wine. I think in our profession we do have to be a little bit more analytical about it. Now that I'm on a different side, like I'm more in the media now, I can say whatever the heck I want. And Vanessa, while you were going through your MW program, I think, you had to be more analytical. But now that we're both kind of like out of that game and we can just kind of like fuck around a little bit more, it's so much fun to like sit and drink wine and talk about it and analyze it if you want to. But if you don't want to, that's also cool. And I love talking to people who are super passionate about wine in this way that just the scores are great, the vintages are great, but like the reality is when you stick your nose in a glass of wine and you smell it and there's something that illuminates you in a way that nothing else can, and it brings a tear to your eye and every sense in your body is awakened, there's nothing else like it. I mean, you can go to a show, you can listen to a concert, but there's nothing that touches you in the way that wine does. And I will die on that hill saying that, because and if you can be listening to that concert and drinking a little wine while listening to Vivaldi, then like good for you. But like me sitting in a quiet room drinking wine, a really great bottle of wine, that's everything.
I have to just say this out loud, and I'm about to get married, but Amanda, when you speak that way, I swear to God, I'm like, I could be in a relationship with this woman. I could move in with her, and we'd be very happy together. I'm just saying it out loud because like I'm literally swooning over your words.
You know what's funny? That's how my boyfriend and I fell in love. We had very little in common when we first got together, and our minds are very different. But we came together on food and wine, and we sat down and we had a meal for the first time, and it was like we spoke the same language without actually having to say anything, and we both like smelled the wine, and I remember it distinctly. It was an SP68 from Ariana Occhipinti in Sicily, and we both were just like, "Fuck!" Like what is this?
Yes. I know. That's what you do sometimes. Sometimes you just go, fuck. Like what? Yeah. That's what I've done.
I'm not sure if I should like leave you two alone or if I should like definitely stay here to chaperone. I'm like 50-50 right now.
I can just see
I don't want you to chaperone, but I do know that you have it in you to contribute to this conversation, because you and I have had very meaningful nights, like drinking amazing. I remember drinking that Pierre Peters Chatillon with you at Torque months ago, and like same thing. We were just both like, how can champagne be like this? You drink like shitty prosecco, or I shouldn't say that, prosecco that just doesn't light up your life, and then you drink something like that, and you're like, like,
Well, yeah, and
how?
it kind of goes
How
back
is
to
this possible?
exactly, and it goes back to what Brian was saying, was that yeah, like you and I can both be more analytical, but there is magic. Sometimes you're just like, I don't know how this is in my glass the way it is, but it's magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes, it's like the difference between a cook and a chef, right? So there's
Yes.
right, there are just some experiences, and there's wine, and then there's wine. And one is wine, and it's table wine, it's all good. And then there are wines that, I hate to say this, but they kind of transcend. They kind of like, there's a metaphysical element where you just go, God, I'm so happy to be alive. Like I'm not just a brain in a vat. I'm a physical creature, full of my scars and full of my physical pains. But thank God, thank
Yeah.
God I'm a
You'll appreciate this analogy. So we talk about the chef and the cook thing a lot, and not necessarily the distinction between the two, but like a good chef and like a really, really good chef. And the distinction is, you'll appreciate this. The distinction is, did it tickle your taint? Did what you eat tickle your taint?
Yes.
Obviously, I don't have a
Yes.
taint, but
I
it's
love
like
it.
it's one of those things that like, did it fondle your balls? Did it tickle your taint? Did it do? How many times can I say taint on podcast?
Let's
How
find out.
many?
Keep going. One of my favorite words. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah.
But like, did it make you just kind of like, whoa, like that really, was it surprising? Was it delightful? Was it all of those things that have a sticky memory? Because I've had lots of great food in my life, and I've been very fortunate, I'm sure you all have too, to go to amazing restaurants, the best of the best, Michelin starred. But when you look back through the menu, and Vanessa, you and I had a meal at Quince, right? What was that, like a year ago?
That was incredible.
I look back, I think about the asparagus dish.
Wait,
I think
where
about
was
the lamb dish.
Quince? Where was
It's
Quince?
in San Francisco. Oh, this
Michelin
dinner was
star.
ridiculous.
I'm gonna be up there.
Oh my God. So good. So good. And I left that dinner, and I was thinking about other things, and I was like, God, there were like 5 dishes where I just went like, that tickled my taint. Like they were so, like, I would go back just for that dish. And I think wine is the same way.
Yeah, it is the same way. What you're talking about here, and it just got me thinking about, I think what we're talking about here, I think the reason you study wine and become a somm or whatever it might be, and I think what makes life worth living is not the comparisons, but the meaningful difference between things. This is where being cultivated in your taste and a connoisseur, or whatever you want to call it. Another way to describe that is someone who understands the meaningful difference between a Pinot and a Cab, a good Pinot and a bad Pinot, a great Cab, a French Cab and a California Cab, an obvious Cab and a subtle Cab, a layered Cab. These are all these things that kind of make life worth living, man. Like, and
Totally.
I don't even have to taste it. I can just hear you wax poetic, and it's like you're talking about Quince, and I'm like, yes, food. What is food without wine? It's the perfect pairing.
We're talking about food and wine pairings, and I worked as a somm at a very prominent steakhouse here in Napa Valley for years, and so I've got a little experience in the steak and wine department. Vanessa, you do a lot of cooking at home. You obviously know a shit ton about food and wine. Brian, you do too. I want to just kind of like jump in with a few of the wine and food pairing, like 101, for people who are like, is it a real thing? Is it not a real thing? Do we care? So there's a couple things to think about when you're talking about food and wine pairings. You've got the acid to fat ratio. You've got your salty sweet. You've got your acid components, your acids having to match in the dish. And so we'll be talking about all of those things as we talk about different dishes. But I do want to kick it off with, like, Brian, have you ever had an incredible food and wine pairing that just kind of like blew your mind?
Yes, like, you mean when I was in Bordeaux and Saint-Emilion, which is like it's a city, it's a town, it's a village made from stone. Okay, probably don't even use mortar. They just use dry stone. And there was the squab that I had with this. I don't know what the wine was. Does it matter? It was from 1985. It was my house payment. That's how much it cost. Again, it's good to have rich friends. But then when the cheese waiter came out with all the cheeses that seem to they're made in the caves just yonder, because God forbid they get cheese from Burgundy. Are you kidding me? There's so I love tribalism when it comes to wine, and I love tribalism when it comes to the Europeans, especially the French and the Italians, who wouldn't dream, if they're from Bordeaux, wouldn't dream of eating even cheese from Burgundy. But my God, we had this Bordeaux and this cheese, and it's really true that there's something about eating that cheese when it's paired with a wine that's been proven to kind of be this seamless partner. It's basically sex in your mouth.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Talk about tickling your taint. It's better than sex. It's better than everything, So that was my latest experience. And then I ate a pigeon's head, and they covered they covered yes.
I didn't know anyone still did it. It's the dove, right? It's pigeon, but yeah.
The dove. It's the I think it's a wood dove. They call it a wood dove, and it's a wild dove, and they hold a napkin over, like they block your face, so you eat it, and you can see the beak, and you eat the head, and then obviously you don't eat the beak, but they don't want anybody to see you eat. It's a tradition, right? When they used to have those little, they didn't want.
It was too. I forget the word. It was too something for even God to see. Is why they covered your head.
Right, and they would drown these little birds in brandy first, and then they'd fatten them up, drown them in brandy. And Francois Mitterrand, that was the last meal he had before he
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why a lot of people don't do this anymore, but
yeah, there's a lot of because you're eating a pigeon's head or a wood dove, especially a wood dove. Here's to peace, everybody. But it was fucking delicious. So if it makes me a bad guy, I'll do it.
Vanessa, any food and wine pairings that blew your mind?
I honestly can't think of one, but I know a favorite of mine, which I think is yours too, which is always like champagne and fried chicken.
Really?
Always.
I've never heard of.
Oh my God, Bryan! I'm gonna DoorDash you some like KFC.
Love you for this. This is so. I'm just. This is beautiful. Wait. So fried chicken, and what kind of champagne would you recommend?
Any champagne will do, because so it plays into, like I was saying, there's a few like 101 rules. It plays into this acid fat thing. So champagne on the acid spectrum for wines is basically the highest you can get. It's got the highest amount of acidity of any wine sparkling still out there. And then when you pair it with fat, like if you think about putting anything fat on your mouth, like so the reason that we love like soda with KFC is because there's carbonation, right? And you've got a little sugar too, so it balances the saltiness. But that carbonation helps to like balance that fat out. So when you're eating all that fattiness, and it kind of stays like laden on your palate, and it gives you a little palate fatigue. And it kind of like dulls everything down. The acidity just like brightens it back up, so you can just keep eating and eating and eating, and it makes everything sort of electric.
It almost
so champagne and fried chicken
like cleanses your palate. It like sweeps away some of that heaviness that Amanda's talking about, the fattiness.
Anything fried with champagne, potato chips, French fries, fried chicken, anything fried with champagne is like a blow your mind kind of thing.
Hey guys, why don't you have an OnlyFans and just talk about food, because you'll make all the money in the world. Just be talking about fried chicken and champagne. Oh my God. Okay, keep going. That sounds unbelievable. Yeah. I mean,
unbelievable.
But seriously, like, it's I can't wait to try this. I can't wait to do this.
It's a game changer. And whenever people are like, oh, I'm like mediocre about champagne or mediocre about any wine, I will give them like one of the textbook old school wine pairings to pair it with. And I'm like, just try it with this. And I'm willing to bet your mind will change, because food can change wine and wine can change food. And it can make you have these really like ethereal experiences in your mouth that you've like, that's the reason I fell in love with wine in the first place. Like, I really liked wine. I didn't grow up in a wine drinking household. My parents didn't drink wine. But when I was working in New York, and I was working with this sommelier at this private club, he turned me on to scallops and champagne, and he actually decanted the champagne because he said the acid level is just a little too high for this champagne. So you actually want to bring it down just a little bit, because CO2 is a weak acid. So bring down the acidity level by decanting it. So you remove some of the layers of that bubble and you get into more of the textural component. So when he did that and we paired it with the scallops, I was like, I love scallops, I love champagne, and together it made this holy matrimony in my mouth that I never thought was possible.
Holy matrimony in my mouth. This is so wonderfully dramatic. Yeah, I had a Psalm say, I said, "What's this wine like?" And he goes, "It's kind of like having a farmer grab the back of your head and shove your face into a bale of wet hay." I was like, "Oh, okay, sounds terrible, but I'll get that." And then he said, he was talking about white wine, and he goes, "This wine's more like taking a bite out of a wet dog." I was like, "Bring it to me, sir."
Interesting.
And yeah, so I
Speaking of
like
Army
your, I
Hammer.
like, yeah, well, yeah. Speaking of which, yeah, it was the weirdest. He was a very strange guy, but Holy Matrimony, I'm going to be stealing all these
Great.
snippets. What is the champagne you would recommend if you had 3 champagnes and you could drink them? What would they be?
I'm a Pierre Peters fan. Anything from Pierre Peters, which is a grower producer in Champagne, meaning they grow all their grapes and they make their champagne as well. Number 2 would be Krug, like all day long. Krug is one of my all-time favorites. Third, I would go. We did that Bollinger Rosé, Vanessa, for our episode a couple ago. I would go Bollinger Rosé. I think
It's
that's
so
one of the
classic.
most delicious classic
Really?
rosés out there.
And I don't really like rosé champagne. I like Blanc de Blanc, like super linear.
Did I know this about you?
But we're learning new things today. But yeah, it's not. I shouldn't say I don't like it. It's on a list. It's going to be the last thing I order if there's great champagne on the list. I would always go something
Okay.
non-rosé. Yeah.
All 3 of those are like relatively easy-ish to find. I think. Do you guys still have Krug on Wine Access? Occasionally, I know it like goes in and out because
it
hard
comes
to get.
and goes, but I'm with you in my love for that wine. I mean, it's so consistent and just really delicious. If someone else is paying, I'm gonna add Salos to that list.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's like the wines that like I'll spring for, and then there's the wines that like someone else will spring for, and that's
Right.
like Solos, Salon. Like there's a whole bunch of that category.
High level, yeah. Fried chicken and champagne. Can you give me some more pairings, please?
Yes. Well, we need to talk about wine and like red wine and steak, right? Because I know that's one of your favorites.
And Amanda, I actually have a question for you about that because Bryan, Amanda, if you didn't know, ran this wine program for this restaurant in here in Napa Valley. Amazing wine list, deep list of Napa Cabernets.
What was the restaurant?
It's called Press.
I know Press.
And obviously they have, a lot of steak on the menu. So I actually, Amanda, have a question for you, which is, what was your favorite pairing? Was it Napa Cab, or did you choose something different if you were recommending a pairing with steak there?
Well, it depended on the steak, right? And so we were exclusively Flannery beef, which we've talked about on the show before. Bryan, are you familiar with Flannery beef at all? This has become kind of a thing in California now.
So my buddy Mark Schatzberg, he's a great guy, but he wrote a book called Steak, which I recently read about, and now he's really into regenerative steak and the difference between grass fed and corn finished and all that stuff. So it's a whole science, and it's really there's obviously massive differences, but I don't know about this particular steaks. But please tell me, because I'm all ears.
Yeah. So Flannery beef was really interesting. They're based out of California. He's they're third generation now with his daughter joining the game. Basically, they did something really interesting. They were always Angus for forever, and then I think about 15 years ago, a farmer turned him on to male Holstein cattle. And right, so your dairy cattle, which obviously the females reserved for milk, the male Holstein cattle were just, getting put out to pasture. Nobody's really using them. So they started butchering these male Holstein cattle. And what they found was that the marbleization of these cattle was so unique. So instead of having like your layers of fat kind of like moving up and down through it, it was almost like it was pinpricked. So you could flame it to a lower temperature, but still have this spread of the fat be really even. Because if you're cooking a steak to a rare, medium rare, which is where I like it to be, you may not get that fat to start melting throughout the entire steak. You may actually get hit with kind of layers that are a little bit still cool and kind of like just hit you in a weird way. This was pinpricked the way that these male Holstein cattle were. And so it was kind of like just melting out like butter all throughout the steak. And so we had this, and I believe they were grass to your point, like grass fed, corn grain finished. And so they didn't have the grassiness that you would get from like a full grass-fed beef. It still had that really beautiful sort of like Angus feel to it. But the tenderness of this meat was unlike anything. But the fat content was really high. So you always wanted a Cabernet that was going to be a little bit higher in acidity. But what I found with some of these steaks was actually a lot of white wines worked really well. So we've talked about Chardonnay and Champagne as a pairing for steak. And because that fat content is really, really high, you can go with something that's got higher acidity. I like to do like a rosé champagne with steak. This is, we were an all Napa Cab steakhouse. This is just kind of a general thing, but rosé has a little bit more texture to balance out the steak. But if I'm talking about like a ribeye, for example, right, the fattiest cut you can get, ribeye, Flannery beef, I'm definitely going with something that's maybe made, was produced in like the 70s or 80s in California, had some age on it. So like the tannin content was, or I'm sorry, the tannins were a little softened, a little rounded out, but the acid was still really high. And so that worked really well with like ribeyes. If I had something like a filet, I could go brand new Napa Cab because the filet is such a low marbleization ratio. You can go with the higher tannin content to balance out with that protein without worrying about it needing to have too much acidity. So you could kind of play around with different cuts to work with different types of cabs. Vanessa, you and I have a 2018 Keenan from Spring Mountain. Which to me is a little bit more old world. This is something that I would do with a filet. This is produced in an old world style, but it still has, a lot of that, like that California richness, that great juiciness. It's from the 18 vintage, which was a phenomenal vintage. So I would do that with a filet, but we also have this Bordeaux, the Chateau Marceau, that I would do with like a dry aged ribeye. This is a little bit more on the old world side. The tannins feel very present, so to speak. But like to me, this is a wine that can go with something that has a higher fat content.
Vanessa, what do you think?
I'm gonna give away a secret. We were gonna send you a Chardonnay.
We were
to talk about steak, but then I think we
I don't
learned
know.
that you don't want Chardonnay
Well,
in your life.
Always, it's funny. I find Chardonnay to be, maybe it's like when I drink cabs that are very obvious and big and jammy. I just, for whatever reason, it's just a lot of work for me. That's a meal in itself, right? And then Chardonnays, and I know there are some great French Chardonnays. I understand this, but maybe I need to get back into them. But they just always feel a little too oaky for me, a little too sweet. But I might be ignorant.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to send you some less oaky Chardonnays for sure.
Well,
there's
this
some
has
great
been an
ones out there.
education because it sounds to me like the fattier the meat, the more liberal you can be with your rosés, your bubblies, and things like that. And I never knew that, so I can't wait to experiment with that.
Absolutely.
I can't wait.
So proteins and tannin. So tannin, the dry astringency that you get in your red wine that dries your mouth out. So all tannin is in red wine to some degree. Cabernet is a really high level of tannin. Tannin and protein bind together and they almost like cancel each other out. So it has to do with your salivatory glands and like the saliva that you're producing as you're chewing. So the tannin will, if you're just drinking red wine by itself, right, that tannin is only going to bind to your salivatory production, and it's going to give you all that drying sensation. When you add protein from like an animal into the mix, that tannin is actually going to bind with the protein instead of just exclusively the saliva. So it'll make the wine seem rounder and softer, and it actually helps to enzymatically break down the protein that's in there as well. So this is why like red wine and steak are such a great pairing, because they actually like really benefit each other while you're taking it all down in your mouth.
Dude, Amanda McQueen.
Your face right now is so good.
Stuff in this bitch, everybody. I love that.
Just
what's sad
overeducate
about
its
me is I'm going to be parroting this. I'm going to be parroting, and I'm going to sound so smart, and I can't wait. I'm not going to give you any credit. I'm just going to be like, just my research. Just my research.
I don't want any of it.
Proteins and tannins. I love that. Yeah.
Proteins and tannins. Yeah. Proteins and tannins, acids and fats. What else am I missing? Salty, sweet. Oh, acidity is a big one. So you talked about cheese, and what I love about Bordeaux is, Bordeaux kind of like takes a lot of these rules. They're like, fuck it, we're going to do whatever we want. And so cheese actually doesn't normally work with red wine because the tannin content's too high and the acid content's too low. So cheese, whether a lot of people realize this or not, cheese is incredibly high in acidity, but it's that lactic acid. So you don't feel it the way that you would feel it in like a green apple. So it's really kind of masked. So in food and wine pairing 101, the rule is you want your acid from your wine to be as high or higher than the food you're pairing with, which is what makes champagne such a great wine to pair with lots of different things. So with cheese, a lot of times what you want is actually like a really high acid white, like a Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, things like that have really high acid content. When you start like moving across the spectrum, so that's fresh cheeses. When you get into like softer, semi-aged cheeses, you can kind of beef it up texturally with Chardonnay. And then when you get to hard cheeses, that's when you can start going into like lighter red wines. But what I love about Bordeaux is in Bordeaux, it's Comte Central, right? It's that hard cheese anywhere from like 12 months age to like I've had it to like 5 years. And so once you start getting into that like kind of like crunchy, salty, you get those like crystals in your mouth. I love what they do at the end of the meal when you've got, the rest of your wine in front of you. They give you that Comte. And I don't know what it is about Bordeaux and cheese, but it just like, it defies the laws of food pairing. And it's just magical. At the end of the meal, it feels so good. And all you want is like more, like I was in Bordeaux for an entire week. The only dessert I ever had was Comte. I had Comte in Bordeaux every single night. And it worked. So like these food and wine pairings are like, there's rules, but like do whatever you want.
That's exactly. I've been there. I would wake up. I was waking up in the middle of the night. My face, there was so much sodium in my face. I didn't recognize myself. It looked like dough. Somebody had poked holes in dough. Now the gun to your head, both of you, Vanessa and Amanda. This is gun to your head. If you had to choose, you have to choose. If there was one region in the world you could only drink from there for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Can we choose two regions, one region for white and one region for red? I'm trying to play by your rules here, but I need to.
The answer is no, Vanessa. We have to choose one region, and then we can get into that.
Oh gosh, that makes it so much more difficult. Okay. Yeah, because if I was able to split it, I would have said probably Chablis for white wine and Northern Rhone for red. But if I have to choose, because there's not a whole lot of red wine as north as Chablis, I would choose Northern Rhone because then I can still drink Viognier.
Very fair.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
Very.
Okay, I feel like I'm going to surprise some people, but also I'm not going to surprise anyone. It's a wide region, and I don't know if this is allowed in your game, Bryan. I'm going California.
I knew you were going to say that. Were you going to say Napa?
I'm not going to say Napa. I'm going to say California, and if you want me to get specific about it, I'll give you Sonoma. And here's why. Because in California, and specifically Sonoma, you've got everything produced from really great sparkling wine to really great cabs, really awesome Pinot. It's a huge appellation. So you've got north to south, multiple different elevations, coastal, inland, you've got everything. And to me, Sonoma is like one of those great places where you can have crazy experiences with wine that you never dreamed possible.
Really? So over Napa, over Bordeaux?
Only because I like, as Vanessa always likes to say, we like to drink promiscuously. I like variety. I value variety over a lot of things. And so for me, like, I think it would be great to drink Bordeaux a lot, but I don't want it all the time. I certainly don't want it when it's 117 degrees outside like it was this week. I want like a crispy white. And like, yeah, I could have some Bordeaux Blanc, but like I can't have Pinot. I can't have Gamay. I can't get sparkling wine in Bordeaux. Not good, at least. So yeah, that's why I go Sonoma.
I think Sonoma is a great choice because you can do extreme coastal, like clean Chardonnays, Pinot Noirs, and then you can move inland. You can have Cabernet. You can have these great like old vine Zinfandels and field blends. So actually, I think that's a great answer because lots of variety.
I'm in love with both of you, but I'm so uneducated. So and is it because Napa is too cab heavy? It's too. Is it just too specific? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like when we're talking, I mean, yes, there's a ton of different varieties produced in Napa, but it is very cab heavy. I mean, we're talking 60 to 70% of what's planted here is Cabernet. And there's other things. There's Charbonneau, there's Riesling, there's Chardonnay, but like the diversity of terroir that exists within Sonoma is pretty incredible because like Vanessa, I think I told you I went on this like West Sonoma. So there's this new AVA, this sub appellation of Sonoma called the West Sonoma Coast, which has always been there, but they just sort of delineated it. And so the West Sonoma Coast, we went on this trip from basically Fort Ross Seaview, which is at crazy high elevation, over 800 feet, all the way down to like the inner parts or the outer parts of Russian River Valley. And what was really interesting is like you could have these like crazy high acid, taut, like just knock you in the face with acidity Pinots and Chards, and then you could go down further south and inland and have these like rounder, juicier experiences with Chardonnay. But then there's all these other pockets, like you've got Sonoma Valley where like our friends Hamill family wines are, and they're making beautiful Cabernets from that place. You've got Cornell on Moon Mountain in Sonoma that's making beautiful Cabernets from that place. So I think like for me, if I'm thinking about all the things that I'm going to want to drink with all the different foods that I'm going to want to eat, I think it just gives me more diversity of terroir, more diversity of grapes, and more diversity of style. Whereas Napa has, Napa has built a name for themselves in a great way. And I live here and Vanessa lives here and we love Napa Valley. But we built a name for ourselves in making really, really beautiful cabs, the best in the world. But in terms of there being other things in diversity of terroir, it does sort of lack in that department as compared to somewhere like Sonoma.
Wow. I'm edgy. I love this. By the way, I'm getting married in Napa.
You are?
But it's only like it's just me and my fiance and then another couple, and that's it.
Oh, so this is in the fall?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be picking your.
It's gonna be so beautiful.
Maybe we can all get together. Maybe we can have a meal.
We're gonna go someplace that has fried chicken, so we can try the fried chicken in Champagne, and then we'll go someplace that has steak, and we're gonna try Chardonnay with steak. And then we'll also try some red wines as well.
Go get a bucket of fried chicken from Ad Hoc and a good bottle of champagne and just like chill outside, and because October 6th will be beautiful. The weather will be like.
And you're gonna be in Portugal doing what? Just tasting wine and eating.
Existing and living and tasting wine. Yeah.
I mean, I have an amazing job. I'm a comic and it's amazing, but I might trade it in for that. I've got to go to Portugal and taste wine.
Vanessa and I both have backgrounds in theater, and that was always like my contention was like I got tired of getting up at freaking 5 o'clock in the morning for an audition at Ripley Greer. And someone was like, hey,
I haven't heard that.
I know.
In like
every time I see
decade, and now it's like all these memories are flooding back. Yeah.
I know. It's so painful. So I, get up to like do these auditions like at the ass crack of dawn. And but then I started getting into wine, and they're like, well, you can go to the Languedoc-Roussillon and you can go to Bordeaux and I was like, this isn't like, why would I keep getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning when I can do this? And I loved doing what I did. But like, to me, and this is where wine, sort of like takes art to the next level. To me, it was like going back to that experience. It was that like all encompassing, feel it all over your body, makes everything tingle up to your taint kind of experience. And then when you go to these places and you get to drink these wines and meet these people and eat this food, like lights out, game over. Thank you very much. I'm done doing whatever it is I was doing before. I'm no longer that girl from Philly. I'm going to Bordeaux, bitches.
Are you from Philly? My fiance's from Philly.
Really? Man, she's good for you. We're a good crowd.
She's actually from Morristown, which is 20 minutes out of Jersey. Yeah. But she identifies, she's a Phillies, she's an Eagles freak. She just like, she's all the way. Yeah. I love performing.
Go Birds.
I love performing there.
Philly's great.
Yeah, that's you came to your senses. My daughter at 14 wants to be an actress, and I'm like, don't do it. I gotta clip those wings in a hurry. I gotta get her.
No, let her do it, and then just let her figure it out. It's not, maybe it's for her, not for her. I was really, when I grew up, and my parents were very, very supportive of everything that I did, including being, because I did the stage thing for my entire childhood into my mid-20s. I was always very, very grateful that my parents were supportive, and I know Vanessa, you had supportive parents as well. I was very grateful that I had supportive parents to nurture that, and that I had the experience on stage, and then I get to think about it fondly, and I get to have those experiences to take with me into wine, because wine, it's all a metaphor, right? There's nothing there's no hay in this glass, there's no berries in this glass, it's just this liquid that exists. And so having other things in life that are life experiences to compare it to think about, and to have these really sticky memories is really important. So I think having interests outside of wine is critical to appreciating and loving wine, just like anything with art.
I think what's so cool about wine too is like you can love wine and know and appreciate so many other things, because as we're talking about, you can learn about places, terroir, regions, people, food, what do they eat there, chemistry, right? Religion, all these things are in this glass.
Everything. Yeah. No, it's the best.
It's a huge point of pride, and you can see why in those regions. The world would be a different place without wine. You could make that is an objective fact. You could actually make a real case for that. If the world had no wine, you wonder what
I don't
want to
think about that. But it's unthinkable.
Well, I think there are things to die for, right? There are things you would die for, like your country, your family, But then there are things you live for. And one of those things is art, is great art, right? Because it kind of lifts you up. It transcends. You kind of forget you're human for a while. When you watch a great piece of art, whether it might be a great play or it's a piece of music that brings you to your knees, there's something about that kind of arrests you. You're in sort of high relief. You forget you have to go to the bathroom and sleep and eat, and all those things, right? You're spellbound, And I think that wine approximates that in some ways when it's a great meal and the first time you dip your nose into that glass, I get so excited. It's more than just endorphins, man.
Yeah.
It's something else because I know what's to come. It's almost like this adventure. I'm just like, oh, we're so lucky. Oh man, we're so lucky.
Yeah.
It's like what you did when you went, fuck, sometimes the only thing you can do is either sing a song or scream fuck.
I think
I don't know. Maybe that's your taint.
It's interesting, Bryan, to hear you talk, because you said it makes you forget you're human. And I get that when you talk about like, oh yeah, I have to pee, but I'm gonna I forgot that because I'm so enthralled. But it's funny because I always say it reminds me that I'm human, because it inspires, I feel things. I'm, the hair is standing up on my arms, or these things. It's not like I am a robot computer because I do spreadsheets and stare at my phone. It's I'm feeling emotion,
Yes, that's exactly right. You're flesh and blood, and you're vulnerable, and you're a limited creature, and we don't have that much time. And this is a very rare occasion. All those parameters make you feel alive. It's really part of what it is, I think. It's you feel lucky, you feel limited, you feel like this is going to end, so I better enjoy it now. It's all those beautiful things. It's that is almost. I think that might be why we cry when we see something beautiful. I was listening. You can say what you will about the Queen, and and colonization and stuff like that, but Boris Johnson made a speech about the Queen, and man, it was really, really moving, because he kind of said she was for us the mother that was the one constant, that was above politics. She was above the Tories and the Whigs. She was above right and left. She was above all of it. She was always there, and we knew that this too shall pass as long as Queen Mum is watching over us. And there was something really moving about that, man. But part of that comes with this sense of limitation, that we're only here for a little bit of time. So to your point, Vanessa, that's a really, really good sort of distinction. Maybe it kind of maybe we ride the balance between the two sensations. I am limited. This is going to end, but also I don't think I'm human right now. This is kind of transcending me into a state that can only be achieved when I'm drinking this ridiculous wine with this amazing food in this incredible setting. Intimacy, adventure, two things that are very rare.
Maybe I'll be so lucky to enjoy all sorts of intimacy and adventure. I had a whole list of questions that I'm not going to reduce this podcast down into asking, because I feel like at this point we have over delivered. You have over delivered. This conversation is over delivered. I'm absolutely thrilled that you took the time to do this with us. I hope you'll come back and do it again. I don't think we've ever had so much fun talking about wine with you, Bryan, and you've been such a great joy to do it with. One thing that I do want to mention, since Vanessa and I were drinking some great wine on this podcast, and what we did promise for season 2 is that we were going to invite all of you listening in to join with us. So we've launched a wine club. So the wine that you'll find in your wine club shipment is the Chateau Marceau Côte de Bordeaux. It's delicious. It's wonderful. It's delicious with a ribeye, as I mentioned. If you are a member of the Wine Access Unfiltered Wine Club, I hope you're enjoying the wines from this week's episode, and keep enjoying for the next episodes as well. So if you're not, though, you can sign up. There's a description below where you can do all that from. Bryan, anything we should plug? I know you've got a special going out and you're on tour. Anything where you want people to find you and enjoy all your wonderful things?
Yeah, my special Man Tears just dropped. Yes. Basically, the theme is if men could cry, the world would be a very different place. And also probably the other theme to that is that you're vulnerable no matter what you try to do. You know, nobody gets out of this thing. But that seems to be doing really well. So it's on YouTube. You can get it anywhere you have your YouTube. And Best Of is my YouTube show. We're about to have some crazy, amazing guests. And I'm about to start my new podcast, which is the Bryan Callen Show. So I'm doing it all on my own. It should be fun. Yeah, man.
Awesome.
But thank you. This has been awesome. I hope we can do it again. I'll come to Napa. I need an excuse. So let's go.
Yeah, we would love for you to come up here. Yeah. We haven't done any of these in person yet. So I think it's, now that we're all traveling again and having a little bit more fun, totally get up to Napa and we'll have some good times and great wine and maybe some fried chicken and champagne. Who knows?
Amen.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening. This is the Wine Access Unfiltered podcast produced by Chabby Cottrell. We are your hosts, Amanda McCrossan and Vanessa Conlin. And thank you for listening. See you next time.